What up? It's your boy. Not really like that. Don't take that to heart. Record. Wait. It's fine. Okay, so hi. I'm gonna do a Metroid tier list because I'm a big Metroid fan. I actually haven't been for a crazy long time. Uh, but I just think it's a really good series. So I'm gonna do one more tier list to fill in some time. I've got the baby right here, and I have a Dark Samus amiibo somewhere sitting in the background that I just got the other day. Um, so without further ado, I guess this one has a little bit different of a ranking than Zelda. It doesn't have a double S tier, but I think that's fine. I think I like this a little bit better. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna try to stick with this format. Um, I'm gonna start left to right. I'm gonna go Metroid Zero Mission. It's a B tier. It's a solid B. Um, I don't have too much to say about Metroid Zero Mission. It's pretty good. Um, it's similar to Metroid Fusion. It's a remake of the first game that uses the Metroid Fusion engine from. It's the second Game Boy Advance game. I think it's got a decent amount of sequence breaking, which a lot of people care about, and I also care about. But it doesn't actually. It doesn't feel like in the same way as Super Metroid or some of the other games that allow you to do things in different orders. It's a little bit different. It's not as loose. It's just that they set up specific parts that you can skip. But besides that, it's overall solid. I really appreciate the Zero Suit Samus section at the end. This is actually what Zero Suit Samus is from. I mean, Samus, people knew Samus was a girl long before this game, but this is the game that actually put her in the Zero Suit, the skin tight, light blue suit that she has. There's a fun playable section at the end of this game where her stuff gets destroyed. And it is really cool, and then you get your suit back, and you feel ultra powerful when you get the suit back, and then you escape the planet before it explodes. Samus has blown up so many planets that has to be like a galactic offense. Super Metroid, S tier. I said in the last Zelda video that Super Metroid lived up to my expectations when I just finally got around to playing it last year. And yeah, this game is super weird because it's one of the I don't even know where to start, because it's one of those. If you've played either Metroid or Castlevania, you'll be familiar with the term Metroidvania. And when it comes to Metroidvanias, it's a similar format. You run from left to right. Certain doors are locked, or things are locked until you get different weapons or keys or moves to get you into different areas. And so you have to do things in a set order. Super Metroid is actually pretty linear for the first 2 hours. And then most of the rest of the game opens up and lets you break it because of wall jumps. They knew wall jumps were in the game. They knew bomb jumping was in the game. There's these moves that the game doesn't tell you, but you can find out about them. And if you're just intuitive enough to find out about those things, the game lets you break it and do different things in different orders. And a lot of people will still do things in order if they don't find out those things, but if they do, it's it's just so pleasant. It's so pleasant. It's kind of weird. Some of the controls are clunky. I don't like when people criticize video game controls too much because I find that to be very vague. So I try to be specific when I criticize controls. And what I'll say with this game is there's probably a reason why none of the Metroid games after this one bother to have a run button. Because a lot of platformers have run buttons. But this one, it has you run and jump and shoot and press buttons to I guess flip between all of your weapons, which is also a complaint. I had to remap the controls to play this game because that's how wonky it felt. And sometimes the wall jump itself is a bit wonky and overly floaty, and the timing of it's kind of weird. Same thing with the screw attack. So there's some control issues in this game, but nothing you can't easily work around and get used to. It's just weird that you have to get used to them at all. But this game is sublime, and I've spent way too long talking about it. So I'm going to go to Metroid Prime Hunters. I'm going to put it in haven't played because, I mean, I've played story. I played this. They used to have Nintendo DS download kiosks at like Walmarts, and you could like bring your system and download a demo from the store, and you could keep playing that game until you turned off your console. And I was really into the Metroid Prime Hunters demo that I left my DS on for several days. It was just a demo of the multiplayer mode, fighting against computers, but it was super fun, and that's my only experience with the game. But I'm inclined to think it would probably be mid-tier, probably okay. Metroid 2. I haven't played the original version of Metroid 2. I've played the remake, which I'll get to a little later. It doesn't look like it's aged super well, if I'm completely honest. There's a bunch of haven't playeds here. I'm sorry. Metroid Prime Federation Force. Dude, why did they announce this game the way that they did? They made it seem like it was going to be Metroid Prime 4, which everyone wants, but instead it was a chibi-looking spin-off about the Federation Force. It's not about Samus. It's about these random guys, and it's on the 3DS, and it's more of a multiplayer. Why? The only way that it's Metroid Prime is the fact that it's a first-person shooter in the Metroid universe, but it's like a completely different game that nobody wanted, so it was review-bombed. Apparently the game is okay, but I know people review-bombed it. Metroid Prime... No, I'm going to skip that one. I want to do the Prime games in order, so I'll do them like that. I'm going to put Prime 1 as an A tier. This is one of the best games in the GameCube. Okay, so Metroid in 2 dimensions is pretty easy to get a grasp on, but Metroid in 3 dimensions, they decided to make it into a first person. It's not even really a first person shooter, I wouldn't call it, because it still maintains all the elements of Metroid. You go around and shoot aliens in first person, but you also solve puzzles and explore the world. And combat's more of a second-hand thing in the series. Metroid Prime's just super, super good. There's a complaint about all 3 Metroid Prime games that I'm going to address it right now. At the end of the game, they make you do a big hunt. Like, you should be able to just access the final boss, but you got to find these 12 hidden relics. Might be 11. I don't remember. It's kind of like in Wind Waker, where you got to find all the Triforce pieces at the end of the game. They're like, oh, we have this big world, and they already did everything. Let's make them take one final lap around it, just because. And all 3 Metroid Prime games do that. In my opinion, the first one is the worst offender. Like, it's the most obnoxious in this game. Some people say it's the second one, but I'll explain shortly why I think the first one's worse. Metroid Prime 2 Echoes is a meme among my friend group because I like it a lot. And we used it in a Mad Lib one time, and it was funny. But this game is, in my opinion, better than the original. I think that's somewhat of a hot take. I know there's been a few YouTubers that have recently gone in and they've been like, you know what, I think this one's better. There was the Geek Critique and King K, they both said that, and I was really happy to hear both of them say that. I think this game's better in almost every way than the first one, because, I mean, I don't know, going through the light and the dark realms to solve puzzles is really cool, and I know that people don't like the fact that in most Metroid games, the only thing that you have a short stock of, or like a limited inventory of, or would be power bombs and missiles. And this one has a limited inventory of even just your basic beams. But I think that adds there's always been this slight element of like isolated horror in these Metroid games, and that's part of what makes it even better in Metroid Prime 2. Plus, it's not actually that difficult to manage your ammo for your different beams, because if you shoot something with the dark beam, you'll get light beam ammo out of the enemy or the destructible thing you shot with it. And if you shoot it with a dark beam, or if you shoot it with light beam, you'll get dark beam ammo. So you can kind of choose, how to manage your ammo knowing that. And also, the elemental weaknesses make a lot of sense. Most things in the dark world are weak to light, and light also does burn damage on those enemies. But a lot of things in the neutral world are weak to darkness, and darkness freezes enemies, kind of like the ice beam in the last game. And some enemies change their weaknesses, and there's just this... And there's different beam combos, like if you shoot missiles while shooting all those kinds of beams, there's different types of shots, but they use even more of all. They use the missile... When you use beam combos, it uses missile ammo and beam ammo, and like you have to really manage it while fighting. And even just being in the dark world slowly drains your health. It's a huge gameplay mechanic here. There's a lot of these things that just make the game more obtuse and difficult for the sake of it, but I don't think it's a bad thing. I actually think it's a really good thing. And also, Umos is my boy. He is a bro. He's an actual character in Metroid. And I don't know, the lore in this game is awesome. Probably my favorite in the series, actually. It's another thing. I just ranted about that one as well. Metroid Prime 3. Actually, this game... I'm tempted to put it in C tier because it annoyed me a lot. I'm going to look over this tier list as... I'm going to look over this tier list again. But Metroid Prime 3 is like... Okay, so when Metroid Prime 2 and 3 came to the... Or when the Metroid Prime series went from the GameCube to the Wii, they obviously felt the need to put motion controls in. And the motion controls are a good thing in my opinion. But I felt like developing them must have taken a toll on the design, because a lot of the design is overly streamlined in this game. You can't choose between different beam weapons. They just stack on top of each other. And so there's just automatically less player choice with the combat. And then what the combat always devolves into is the same thing, which is cool a few times, but the entire game is basically just this. Enemies are like moderately strong, I guess. They take a few shots to kill unless they power themselves up. They go into, hyper mode. That's something that Samus can do in this game as well, whereas you choose to activate it on purpose, but your health slowly drains, and you shoot these hyper beams, and they're super strong. So a lot of enemies, you'll run into them, and they'll just enter hyper mode, which means you enter hyper mode, shoot them, kill them, and then turn hyper mode off to stop losing health. And then there's also this one gimmick that they have where you flick the nunchuck forward to use the grapple beam, and then you pull it off. It's called the grapple lasso. So you can like take off enemy armors with the grapple beam with your left hand. And both those things separately are cool, but almost all the combat in the game is those two things. You shoot the boss, expose a grapple lasso point, take it off, shoot it with the hyper beam. Almost all enemies and bosses in the game have that one pattern, and they reuse it the whole time. And this game also gives you too much of a sense of direction. There's like no exploration because a computer literally tells you where to go. And with those two things combined, it's super linear, and the linearity is really repetitive. I actually felt this game was just notably worse than the first two. The end game hunt is better in this one, actually, though, because there's like 13 different power cells in this one. You only have to find like 5 in order to get to the ending. In Metroid Prime 2, there's 9 things you have to find, but I found 2 of them along the way, so I only had to find 7 in my playthrough of Metroid Prime 2. So I think the end game hunt is actually already fine in that one. In this one, it's the best, but the whole game is just worse. Interesting story, though. This game, I'm going to put this one in A tier, right there. I thought this game was really good. It's a little bit more combat-oriented than most of the other Metroid games, because it I mean, it's basically a Metroidvania boss rush of a game. You have to, you know how many Metroids you have to kill at any given point in the game, and it's up to you to find them, solve the puzzles, find them, and then beat them relatively quickly. And like a lot of other Metroid games, it rewards you for completing it quickly. And it's the only one that reward has been enough for me. Like, I'm going to play that game again to try to get a better time, because the game was simply exciting to play. I like bosses in games. I like fast-paced challenges. And this is a cool game that really balances. I think Metroid could stand it, but a little bit more emphasis. Not a lot. Just a little bit more emphasis on combat. And this game does that, and it makes it more replayable for me. Also, Samus's design in this game is just friggin' cool. Might be the best in the series. This is a remake of Metroid 2, by the way. It's the only version I've played. I like the ending. It's heartwarming. Metroid Prime, Pinball. S tier. Metroid Prime, Other M. S tier. No, this game's not good. Neither. I haven't played this game. I played it again, just like this. Just like Metroid Prime Hunters. It's I played a DS download demo, I believe, of it, but I can't really judge it based off that. Metroid Prime Other M, I've played like the first half of it. I rented it. This game's not good. This game's not this makes me think of what I said in the last one, in my Zelda video, when I was talking about Zelda 2 Adventure of Link. I don't think the formula is the problem in this game, because this is a 3D Zelda game that's not a first-person shooter. It's a third-person action-adventure game. That could definitely work for Metroid, in my opinion. And it's a shame this game was so bad overall, because I would like to see them try it again. I don't think all 3D Metroid games have to be Metroid Prime games. But the bad parts about this game are just too much to bear. The story is awful. Not just by Metroid standards, it's just awful in general. Samus is depicted as just a not great character. The action is really flashy, but it's super easy, and you realize it's a lot more style than substance. For some reason, you can only play this 3D game with the Wii remote, so you get locked in. It's one of those games where you get locked automatically into running into like diagonal directions down the hallways you need to go automatically, because it doesn't actually have analog control. So there's a dodge button if you're in combat and you press the D-pad to dodge, right? If you press the D-pad right before an attack hits you, Samus automatically dodges. But there's no strict timing window to do that, so most combat boils down to just, moving a little bit at a time till you dodge, and then you shoot the enemy. Samus automatically just kind of flips around, and she automatically aims at everything. It's a lot more style over substance gameplay-wise. In this game, there's just a lot of little things, like Samus already has her power-ups, but she's not authorized to use them instead of finding them, which I know that's a cliche already, but this isn't better. She has to choose to listen to a commanding officer. There's a point in the game where Samus is burning alive, like her health is actually draining away in a volcano, and she doesn't turn on the heat shield feature, essentially, until the dude says, you need to turn on the feature or you'll burn. It's like, Samus should have done that by herself, because she's an awesome bounty hunter that blows up planets on the daily. Like, she didn't need to have some commanding officer tell her to save herself. That's just stupid. I'm trying to think of what else. There's just there's not very good exploratory elements either. So the action looks cool, but it's actually not. There's no exploration. The story's really bad. This game is legendary for putting the Metroid franchise on ice for several years. The original Metroid, I've played about as much as Zelda 1 and 2. Like, I've tried to play it for a few hours, and I got a good taste of it. Enough to judge. It shouldn't be that big a surprise. I like, this series, and I like NES games as much as I think most people my age like NES games. Like, SNES games are when games stopped You didn't have to. Once the SNES came out, the difference between like something that's 8-bit and 16-bit is the visuals and the audio go up just enough to where you don't have to use a ton of imagination to like think about what the game is like. 8-bit games haven't actually aged that well, in my opinion, and the design of a lot of the games was just weirdly hard and frustrating and aimless. That's a rant at a lot of NES games in general. There were exceptions, but the original Metroid is not one of them, and I don't really want to play it, to be honest. Metroid Fusion, very good game. Put it there. It's actually really linear, but that's not a bad thing. I panned Metroid Prime 3 for having a computer literally tell you where to go. But in this one, the computer is kind of an actual... It does the same thing, but the computer is kind of an actual character. And it's interesting. It's an interesting setting. Samus is more vulnerable in this game. Not only did she get stripped of her power-ups, she was stripped of her suit. She's like... There's like a... The fusion suit is... She was attacked by parasites at the beginning of the game, and it's the result of... It's just like the inside fleshy part, essentially, mutated, of the Varia suit. Like, mutated and stuck around her body now. She's part parasite now, and she has the weakness of Metroids. She's weak to ice, just like Metroids are. So, enemies hit like a truck in this game for that lore reason. Samus is weaker. I thought it was really cool. In most games, Samus holds the gun like that, but in this game, she holds it like this, and she's kind of slouched over the whole time. And there's this horror element to this game, too, on the Game Boy Advance, where you're getting hunted by this creature as you play the game, and you feel weak and isolated. And again, it's a linear adventure, but the linearity is done really well. Like, a lot of times in Metroid games, you'll be going down an elevator slowly. And in this one, like, you'll be going down an elevator in the space station where the game takes place. The whole thing runs out of power. So you have to exit the elevator while you're on it, and you have to, like, go through the ventilation shaft or whatever. There's a lot of, like, surprise moments in the game. So even though it's linear, every moment is epic and memorable, and I like it a lot. I think this is every Metroid game, period. I'm not sure if I did this list too much justice, but yeah, I definitely stand by this. These are my favorite ones. Super good, super solid, very replayable even. Super good, super solid, not quite as replayable, very good, very replayable. And there's more stuff. I'm going to do this for the meme. Alright. It's a nice shape, almost. Alright, but yeah, so I like all kinds of games, and I'm just trying to make these videos to fill in time between the longer ones. If you disagree with me, or very much agree with me, or anything in between, you can leave a comment, like, subscribe. That'd be great. That might have been creepy, and I sincerely apologize for that. I won't do that again. Just like the last time, I don't know how to end this. See you guys soon, I guess.